Brickety Brock, what's going on? I have not made a video response to you in a long time, and this is going to be a video response to you and your video in defense of the Bible. Now, in your comment section, I said that I would make a video response to you tomorrow, and that was 3 days ago, and I should not make these hasty promises that I can't necessarily keep, because my life has been very busy. I've had lots of homework, I've been looking for a job, I've been reading the Bible, I've been reading Brave New World, lots of shit, lots and lots of crazy shit's been going on, so I should not make promises in the future that I can't necessarily keep. On that note, I will be making another video about the book of Genesis today, because I finished reading that, and I'm on Exodus right now. So, for all you viewers out there, keep an eye out for it. Now, you claim that the Bible passes 3 tests: the internal test, the external test, and the biblical test. And we'll get to those later in this video. It is important to keep in mind, however, that even non-biblical texts that pass all 3 of these tests are not automatically assumed to be 100% true. Indeed, there are many such works that pass all 3 tests that contradict each other. And we have to view those and assume that they are have as much veracity as we can logically infer that they have. I hope that makes sense. I really do. In a lot of ancient Greek literature, for example, that dealt with history, let's take Tacitus, for example. I know you're a fan of him. Tacitus made references to pagan gods and stuff when he was held as a hostage by the Germans, or the Germanic tribes or whatever. He claimed that they did like rituals and stuff to invoke their gods upon them or whatever. We believe the part where they did the rituals and stuff with the runes, because that's not ridiculous. We don't believe that there were many gods up there who actually made the rituals work, because that is ridiculous. It's the same thing with the Bible. We believe the siege of Jericho happened because we have, the Bible to say that it did, and plus a few other evidences, archaeological and such. We believe that the siege of Jericho happened, but we don't believe that God caused the Jews to win, or whatever. I'm not exactly sure exactly what the Bible claims in regards to God and the siege of Jericho, because unfortunately I'm not at that part of the Bible yet. I'm only in Exodus, reading about Moses. But you get the idea of what I'm saying. Even works that pass all 3 of these tests have to be regarded with a certain amount of skepticism. That's not to say that we can just refute anything we want willy-nilly outright, but at the same time, we cannot take anything, especially ancient works, for face value. Shut. Sorry, busy. Now, as for these 3 tests, I'm going to do my best to analyze your claim that the Bible says that these 3 tests are passed. The internal test. Do the people who wrote the Bible believe that what they're writing is true? Yes, of course they do, but how is that proof of anything? I mean, Richard Dawkins believed that what he writes is true. In your eyes, would that constitute, evidence that any of his books are true? Evidently no, because you don't believe in any of his books. And you also claim that the Bible is 100% the same, what am I trying to say here? That there's no discrepancies anywhere within the actual Bible. That's a little bullshit. Atheists point them out all the time. Now, hold on. I will recant my statement that I just made about it being a load of bullshit, because I will say that I have not read the Bible cover to cover yet. But what I have read of it, that's all of Genesis and part of Exodus, there have been a couple of discrepancies, even from chapter to chapter within the same book. So, I don't want to call you a liar, Brock Lolly, but it just seems that you're kind of glossing over anything that inconveniently stands in your way of delivering your message that the Bible is true. And I fear that the only way for anyone to really be able to make an accurate judgment about this is to read the Bible. And of course that's not something that most people are willing to do, for obvious reasons. I mean, it is pretty long and tedious. I find it an enjoyable read so far, but I will say that it is long and tedious, and that sometimes I find it harder to read than I think I should. But I'm slugging on. So next we have the external test. Extra biblical references to Jesus. Now, I looked up some of these philosophers and historians and such that you listed in your video and found all the references to Jesus to be sketchy. They always say things like, well, the Christians who exist now believe that Jesus Christ was crucified for their sins, or in some cases they'll make a reference to Jesus actually having existed, like 3 centuries ever since Jesus got crucified or whatever. Most historians would not take anything like that to be historical evidence of anything except that the idea that Jesus existed was around. And this is not a double standard. The same principle applies to any historical texts. I mean, if it didn't, then we would probably still believe in ancient Greek mythology, which we don't. So don't try pulling that card on us, especially when all these references are so incredibly sketchy. Now, why do we believe in Napoleon, for example? Well, because the references actually were not sketchy. Like, they were incredibly clear. We have clearly documented. Okay, you claim that the Bible clearly documents. It does not clearly document shit. I'm just going to say that right now. No more than the Poetic Eddas clearly document Norse history or the history of the world by, stuff like that. But we have clear and extremely believable documentation of Napoleon and other historical figures. I'd like to use the siege of Stalingrad as an example in Soviet Russia. How do we know that the siege of Stalingrad was real? Well, my dad told me. Oh, well, your dad's not a good enough source. You need something better. Okay, well, history books told me. Well, history books aren't a good enough source either. You need something to actually prove that it actually happened. Well, my grandmother, who was alive when she told me and was actually there when it happened, told me that the siege of Stalingrad happened. That's an example of how we know stuff like that. And that is actually why ancient history, which is further away from us, is much foggier than most people would have you believe. Yes! Sorry. Ancient history in general is riddled with, well, we believe that such and such happened, but this source says otherwise. It's not 100% clear. So also keep that in mind. Now, the third test, I'm trying to remember what it is, the bibliographical test, there we go. The contents of the Bible do not change over time. That's a load of bullshit right there. And I can say that with confidence because how many versions of the Bible are there? And even if it was true, the King James Version and the Standard Version and the Gideon Version of the Bible, they vary on a couple of words per chapter or whatever, let's just say. So it's not that big of a deal. But even if it were 100% true that the original copy of the Bible was word for word, the same as the one we read today, that does not prove anything. That just proves that people believed in it so strongly that they were willing to copy it word for word, dimension for dimension, etc., which even that didn't happen. This has been the Insane Bastard on the Bible. Peace the fuck out.